welcome to video 5. Here I've got a photograph of my husband and me in San Francisco and some tram stamps. So I'm going to start with a white piece of basil cardstock and I'm using 3 Distress inks. I'm using the squeezed lemonade, twisted citron and carved pumpkin. So I am making a background inspired by a crop yesterday that I was at, my local crop, and I was sat next to a lady who was doing some art journaling, and I thought actually this is something that I'd like to do on a page today, so let's see how this works out. So I am just layering that here, there and everywhere and just building up the layers slowly. I'm struggling a little bit. I hurt my shoulder, so I actually not got a lot of strength in my left hand. I'm trying to hold the paper so that it doesn't move about, and I found stamping, I was struggling a little bit with stamping on this page later on. So please apologise. I apologise for that. So please forgive me. So yeah, so just continuing. Not really sure why the camera's moving about there. I think it might be because Candy was wandering about, and although we can't see it, maybe it was picking up her tail. So apologies for that. Here we go. Continuing on with this page and a little bit more of the Distress Oxide inks. I realised after I did this that I could have actually splashed some water on this and sort of had some water droplet effect, but I didn't think about it at the time, and by the time I did think about it, I'd already used a heat gun and sort of set the ink. So there you go, I'm moving those out the way, and I'm just going to finish off with some yellow just to sort of build up in the little gaps where there is no colour, just to sort of build that up. And there's the picture of me and my husband. So I've just gone and got a mask, and I'm using some Dreamweaver glossy white, and I am again looking at the mask to find the correct side. I've got some gathered twigs Distress ink here, and I'm just mixing that with a little bit of texture paste because I don't want the very bright white for my masking. I would like sort of a slightly muted colour. I will then be using other browns on this page, which is about the cable cars in San Francisco during our recent holiday. See here I have a little pot of water that I keep to the side because if you don't clean your stencils, they do definitely, if you don't clean them straight away, it definitely makes it more difficult to clean afterwards. I've just gotten some watercolour paper here, and Candy's come back. I'm just going to encourage her up to her bed that she's got just off to the side of me. So I've got some watercolour paper and I'm stamping. I'm choosing various inks to stamp because I wasn't quite sure which one would be the best one for this stamp. It's quite detailed, of a, here she is again, of a tram car. It is a TS7 Moodtape Transparent stamp that I purchased recently to do this project. Having a little bit of trouble, as I say, stamping, just because I haven't really got much strength in my left hand to sort of stamp that down. They're coming out. They're not too bad. There's a little bit of a void in the images, so I actually end up going with the very first one that I stamped, although I thought that archival ink worked very well as well. I do now come in with some zig pens, and I'm going to use a brown and a grey to colour this image in and just give it some definition. Also got a water brush there to sort of slide the colour and move the colour around a bit. So I'm just going to slowly be building up the colour in this picture. So the intention is to colour the tram in. Perhaps I actually end up going with two of them. I choose another one later on because I think it will be better with two cards. So as I say, I was at a local crop that I attend regularly yesterday, and I was sat next to a very lovely lady who was doing some art journaling, and it really did inspire me. I do like art journaling. I do like the techniques. I picked up one or two new techniques from her, one of which I'm going to use on this page, and I'll describe that when we come to it. Yes, I like creating my own backgrounds and just seeing what sort of effects that you can get. And so I think I might start doing a little bit more of art journaling, because then what I learn I can pick, or anything that I pick up I can use in my scrapbooking as well. You see there my cloth that I use to wipe up messes and spills, and in this instance I'm taking a bit of colour, if there's too much colour, off the paintbrush and dabbing that away, rather than always using kitchen paper and something disposable. I have a couple of flannels that I use in my scrapbooking, but of course over time they get ink stains on them and paint stains and whatever else. But they do serve a purpose, and it's a bit better for the environment as well. I'm putting a few little dabs of the red on the tram just to give a little bit more life to the picture, just to make it pop a little bit and give it a little bit more definition. So quite like this, how this is turning out. So I'm now going to cut that, dry it off just a little bit so it's nice and dry when it goes on the page, and cut that out. I'm going to cut away the excess to the stamp and just have the bulk part of the tram itself. When I go and I put it on my page, the intention is that I will stamp the image again so that I'll have that background, the little bit of the tracks and the wire above, but this makes it an easy way of doing that. And I'm coming in here with gathered twigs, Distress Oxide, to finish off around the edge of this tram, just to take away any white images around the cutting. I dried that off a little bit off camera, and now I'm coming in with smoked hickory ink and a stamp. So just stamping a few little words and things around there. Apologies about the camera. I must have moved my camera, and maybe it's picking up me, not Candy. So I should apologise to her for thinking it was her. I think it must be picking up my movement. So I've got the gathered twigs again with a stamp of like a little cross section stamp, and then this stamp that I've just used was wood grain, but it wasn't coming out quite right on the block, so I'm just going to hold that and stamp that around the page, and hopefully I can minimise those lined marks that are there. So I have an empty bottle here that I'm going to use to do a little bit of stamping in itself. I've got some Peebo black paint, and I'm just putting some with my finger rather than dabbing it straight into the colour. It was one thing that Teresa said to me yesterday, was that if you just put it on with your finger, you get a little bit more of a little bit less ink and a little bit more of that sort of distressed coffee stain, sort of not a full circle. And now I am using the lid of that bottle to put some smaller circles around the page, just to add a little bit more depth to the page itself. And I'm really quite enjoying how that looks. Photograph is going to go there, and my tram, just trying to work out where that's going to go and think about what else we're going to put on here. So I'm coming in with a couple of the little stamps from the same stamp set, the TS7 transparent stamps. So this one is a bigger tram, and then I'm also going to use side view, and I'm also going to use a front view and stamp those in a few different places as well. I'm going to use this page for a retreat that I'm going to in a couple of weeks' time, and there is a challenge called Transport Challenge. I thought I might go in with another stamp there, but decided that actually I won't. And so now I'm quite happy with where my images are going to go. I'm just rubbing off the excess that I don't want. There's kind of like clouds on the stamp, and I don't really want those. But I'm going to stamp these two trams here, so that I then have that background of the cables underneath the train and the overhead cables. So I'm going to glue these ones down with my white glue and pop those in place, because I'm quite happy with those. And yes, so this is just a very thin needle nose bottle that I like to use. I don't find that I get over glue, too much glue, and so it doesn't spill out past my item that I want to stick. And this is another technique that I picked up from Teresa. So I've got a graphite pen here, and it is a paper brush. It is something that I use in my scrapbooking when I'm doing sort of work with metal papers, and I add some design and some definition to the metal papers to draw pictures and things like that with this pencil. It is literally just quite a hard piece of paper, rolled paper, and you can get a very fine tip with it. You can sharpen it like a pencil, and eventually it will sharpen all the way down, but it's very good for doing a little bit of shading around the outside of these trams, just to give them a little bit more shadow. I've just grabbed one of my little envelopes there where I keep all my offcuts of paper. I have quite a lot of black offcuts. The black I keep even the smallest pieces, because every now and then I will just sit down and I will cut loads and loads of cats, so that I've always got a supply. But I keep these little pieces of paper for when I need just one or two little pieces of paper behind something, or to make a tag out of for pages. So the background, the picture's stuck down. Now, I was going to use some foam pads and then realised I don't actually have very many left. So I grabbed the offcut from the tram cutting that I did, and I'm folding that in half, and I'm going to stick that onto the picture. I don't stick this together. I actually leave this open, sort of like a hinge, so that I can put this behind my photograph, and then I glue the other side, so it's left open like a triangle there, with the point of the triangle on the outside, so that it opens up inside. This gives you a little bit more of a pocket in order to put a journaling card or a tab behind. And here I am just gluing that one down, and I do find that, of course, because the textured paste is a glossy textured paste, that's not sticking quite so well. Coming in here with my title, Cable Car, which I did, was just a white title, but I coloured again with the Gathered Twigs ink. And I'm just thinking I'm going to put one enamel dot on that corner, because that will make sure that that holds that down against the textured paste. Now I'm almost finished here. I grab a little piece of card, and I'm making a tag. You see me cut one corner of the triangle off and then lay it down on the other side, and I'm using a Japanese screw punch to put a hole, and then I get an eyelet just to finish that off, just so that it doesn't rip when I put a piece of ribbon through it. So that's going to go in there, and then I go to get a piece of cord. I keep a lot of my ribbons in Tic Tac boxes. It's a great way to keep them all tidy. You can pull a little bit out so that you can find and see quite easily in your drawer what's there. I'm going to go back in with that shading effect around the photograph. So you can either take the ink or the graphite off the pencil with the paper pencil, or like I was going to do there, draw directly onto the page and then smudge it. The only issue with drawing directly on the page is that I might get some on the black, and so that's why I stopped myself from doing that. Because if I get it on the black, it might show up a little bit more silvery than the grey on the black paper. So there's just the final bits here. I pull the tag out so that I can go all around the picture. And yes, I'm finishing this off, and then I will come in with my cat, and that will be this page finished. So I hope you have enjoyed watching. I will post on the bottom of the photograph the products that I've used. Please subscribe and like if you've enjoyed watching this page, and I will bring some more techniques in my next page. Thank you very much, and you can see my rebranded cat, which is a drawing a friend drew for me, so there's my new logo.